Good morning, my brothers and sisters. By the way, there's a new king in town. So I hope you'd enjoyed the best frankincense podcast of all time that we did yesterday. And today we find the wise men are bringing gifts for the baby Jesus. And they're kind of prophetic because they recognize him as king and that he's going to be a sacrificer with the frankincense and that he's going to die and be buried, so saith the myrrh. All right, so those things were valuable because of their scarcity. And today we're going to look at the evil that's behind the story of the wise men. So the wise men are obeying a prophecy, probably that their ancestors heard 700 years earlier, that a star was going to come out of Jacob. So they go on the quest for the baby. Basically, they go and they try to find this needle in a haystack. And all they have is the star to guide them. So they go to the country of Jacob, to Israel. Then they go to the capital of that country, to Jerusalem, and then they go to that regional leader, who is Herod. Now, who is this Herod guy? He's called Herod the Great, Herod the Builder. And many of these buildings actually are still here today. Masada and the Temple Mount that he helped renovate the temple before Jesus' time in about 27 to 13 BC or so. He was shrewd, he was a soldier, he was an orator, and he worked with the Roman government. So he was a Roman official. But he was kind of entering the 33rd year of his reign. Now, this guy was a ruthless guy. He killed his own wife. He killed his own children. One of his things in his will was, and by the way, when I die, kill another one of my children. He wanted Jewish leaders to be killed after he died so that the whole country would be in mourning around the time of his death. Okay, but he finds out about this rival king, Jesus, in the story here today. Now, he had enough knowledge about the Jews to know that this was a real threat. He was kind of like a third-generation Jew from his history. And probably Herod considered himself somewhat of a Jew, basically when it suited him, and he fashioned himself as a king like David. However, then he had blatant disregard for all the laws of Jewish. One interesting thing is that he appointed the high priest. That was something I learned in my study here today. So this is from Matthew chapter 2. Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. He stopped being king in 4 BC. Behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem saying, imagine Herod there sitting on your throne and you hear this. Where is he who is born king of the Jews? This must have blown his mind. We saw his star when he rose and have come to worship him. Now, let's see what happens to Herod. When Herod heard this, he was troubled. And then he refers to this person as the Christ, which means anointed. Anointed to what? Anointed to kingship. So Herod knows what's going on. So he assembles his wise people, and they say, hey, he's going to be born in Bethlehem. So then Herod summons the wise men secretly. This is verse 7 from chapter 2. Herod summons the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him. That's a lie. He wants to kill him. So let's review. The wise men show up. They've come to worship. And Herod knows a couple things about this Jesus. He has a king title. He has a star, so that's pretty cool. He already has followers of some means, and we know that he's just born, so he's pretty young. So he gathers his priests and scribes and chief priests and inquires about him. All right, so should I be threatened by a child king? You may ask. Well, it absolutely yes, because if others start to recognize and align their behavior towards this king, so allegiance, finances, military power, so children king throughout history are a real thing and always have been. So he sends these wise men, theoretically, on this secret exploratory mission, which is usurped by a dream from God, a real warning. So what happens to the witnesses to this king? So if those wise men would have come back to Herod, what do you think Herod would have done to the wise men? I think he would have killed them because they were witnesses of this new king, and that had to be, expunged. And he had no qualms about this. He killed his own wife. He killed his own children. I can kill a couple of wise men. All right, let's talk about the flight to Egypt. So what happens after Herod, blows his stack? Here it is, verse 13. When they, the wise men, had departed back home, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose, took the child, his mother by night, and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod, which wasn't very long, less than a year. This was to fulfill what the Lord had said by the prophet, Out of Egypt I have called my son. All right, so Herod is on the search. No kidding. He's not to worship, but to destroy. The fact that Herod wants to destroy Jesus, in a sense, serves to tell us that Herod understood the power of Jesus and the office that Jesus occupied, which was of Christ, Messiah, which means the anointed one, to a kingship. And then we find Joseph protecting, listening to the Lord. He's already done so well in his relationship with Mary, resolving to divorce her quietly. And now he rises in the night, takes her, and flees to Egypt. All right, and finally, Egypt. The story of the Jews cannot be told without the history of Egypt. So we've got Moses, we've got Exodus, we've got the riches of Egypt, and we have the fulfillment of this prophecy that out of Egypt I called my son. Okay, so every single person has a realm that we occupy, a realm that we have control over, that we've been king over in a sense. And now we find there's a new king in town. What am I going to do about it? Stick around tomorrow. We'll find out what Herod does, and then we can find out what we should do about new king in town. Thanks for listening.